You've been taught that forgiveness is always the answer, that holding boundaries makes you petty, that real love means accepting everything, that if you can't forgive, you're the problem, and so you've forgiven things that should have ended it. You've excused patterns that revealed fundamental incompatibility. You've given second chances and third chances, and lost count of how many chances to behaviors that communicate one thing clearly: you don't matter enough. And here's what nobody tells you: some things aren't forgivable. Not because you're holding grudges, not because you lack compassion, but because forgiving them requires you to accept treatment that destroys your self-respect. And self-respect isn't negotiable. It's the foundation everything else is built on. And when you forgive things that violate it, you're not being loving. You're teaching people that violating you has no consequences. And that lesson, once learned, shapes every interaction that follows. The first thing you should never forgive is deliberate cruelty. Not anger, not mistakes said in heated moments, but calculated cruelty. The kind where she knows exactly what will hurt you and chooses to do it anyway. Where she weaponizes your vulnerabilities. Where she uses information you trusted her with to cause maximum damage. And the distinction matters. Everyone says things they regret in arguments. Everyone has moments of anger where words come out wrong, but there's a difference between losing control in the moment and choosing to hurt someone because you know how. Between expressing frustration and executing emotional violence. And when it's the second one, when she's using your weaknesses against you with precision, that's not a mistake, that's a choice. And forgiving that choice means accepting that your pain is a tool she's willing to use when it benefits her. And once you accept that, once you normalize it, she'll use it again. Because you've shown her it works. Because you've demonstrated that causing you pain doesn't cost her anything. The second thing is systematic disrespect. Not one incident, but a pattern. The way she talks about you to others, the way she dismisses your perspective, the way she treats your time as worthless, the way she makes unilateral decisions about things that affect both of you, the way she invalidates your feelings as overreactions. This isn't about her disagreeing with you. This isn't about conflict. This is about whether she fundamentally respects you as an equal, as someone whose thoughts and feelings and needs matter as much as hers. And when the pattern reveals that she doesn't, when it's clear that she sees herself as the authority and you as subordinate, forgiving, that means accepting the hierarchy. It means agreeing to be perpetually less than. And you can't build partnership on that foundation. You can only build resentment, because every time she disrespects you and you forgive it, you're participating in your own diminishment. You're co-signing a dynamic where her comfort matters and yours doesn't, where her preferences are legitimate and yours are negotiable. And that's not love. That's accommodation masquerading as love. The third thing is betrayal of shared agreements, not the inability to keep a promise, but the deliberate choice to break agreements you both made about what the relationship would be, about monogamy, about honesty, about priorities, about how you'd handle money or kids or major life decisions. And when she breaks those agreements, when she does the thing you both explicitly agreed not to do, and then expects forgiveness without consequence, she's asking you to accept that your agreements don't matter. That what you both decided was important is only important when it's convenient for her. That the structure you built together can be dismantled whenever she feels like it. And forgiving that, accepting that back into the relationship without fundamental change means you're living in uncertainty forever. Because if the agreements don't hold, if they can be violated and forgiven and violated again, then nothing is actually agreed upon. Everything is temporary. Everything is conditional on her mood. And you can't build stability on shifting ground. Here's what most men miss. Forgiveness without changed behavior is just enabling. It's allowing the pattern to continue while pretending you've addressed it. She apologizes. You forgive. Things are good for a week. Then the behavior returns. Because the apology wasn't about genuine remorse, it was about resetting your tolerance so she could do it again. And this cycle, this pattern of transgression and apology and transgression, it only works if you keep forgiving, without requiring actual change, without seeing consequences, without her having to do the difficult work of addressing why she keeps doing the thing that hurts you. And if you keep participating in that cycle, you're not being forgiving, you're being used. You're being someone's emotional punching bag who resets himself after every hit so the next one can land clean. The fourth thing is contempt, not anger, not frustration, but contempt. The look of disgust when you express a need, the eye roll when you're talking, the sarcasm that's designed to make you feel stupid, the way she mocks you to others. Contempt is different from conflict. Conflict can be resolved. Contempt is a fundamental loss of respect. It's seeing you as lesser, as someone who deserves mockery rather than consideration. And research is clear on this. Contempt kills relationships. Not eventually, quickly. Because once contempt enters, once she's viewing you through a lens of disgust rather than respect, there's almost no coming back. And forgiving contempt, accepting it as just her personality or just how she expresses frustration, means living with someone who fundamentally doesn't respect you, who sees you as beneath her, who treats you with derision and expects you to just take it. And that's not sustainable. That's soul death. That's choosing to stay with someone who's showing you daily that they don't actually like who you are. The fifth thing is making you responsible for her choices, not her asking for help, not her needing support, but her blaming you for her decisions, for her unhappiness, for her failures, for her moods, making everything somehow your fault. And when you forgive that, when you accept responsibility for things you didn't cause, you're entering a dynamic where you're perpetually guilty, where nothing is ever good enough because she's not taking ownership of her own life, where you're managing her emotional state instead of being her partner. And that burden, that weight of being responsible for another adult's well-being and choices and happiness, it will destroy you. Because it's impossible. You can't make someone happy who's determined to outsource that responsibility. You can't fix someone who won't do their own work. And forgiving her for making you responsible for things that are hers to own means accepting that you'll spend the relationship trying to do the impossible while being blamed for failing at it. Here's what forgiveness actually is. It's releasing your own anger, your own bitterness, your own need for revenge. It's choosing not to let what happened poison your future. But forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation, doesn't require you to let that person back into your life, doesn't require you to pretend it didn't happen. You can forgive and still walk away. You can release the anger and still maintain the boundary. You can choose not to carry hatred and still refuse to accept treatment that violates your dignity. And that's the distinction most men don't understand. They think forgiveness means giving another chance, means pretending it's okay, means letting it go with no consequences. But that's not forgiveness. That's self-abandonment. So what do you do when these things happen? You stop pretending they're forgivable. You stop telling yourself that love means accepting everything. You stop believing that maintaining the relationship is more important than maintaining yourself. And you set a boundary. Not with anger, not with drama, just with clarity. This behavior is not acceptable. And if it happens again, I'm done. Not because I don't care about you, but because I care about myself. And I won't stay in a dynamic where I'm being diminished or disrespected or betrayed or treated with contempt or made responsible for your choices. And then you follow through. Because boundaries without consequences aren't boundaries. They're just suggestions. And she's already shown you that suggestions don't matter to her. And here's what will happen. Either she hears you and does the actual work to change, not just apologizes, changes, goes to therapy, addresses the patterns, takes ownership, demonstrates through consistent action over time that she understands what she did and why it's not acceptable and that it won't happen again. Or she doesn't. She minimizes, she deflects, she makes it about you being unforgiving or holding grudges or not accepting her flaws. And in that response, you have your answer, that she's not willing to do the work, that the relationship matters less to her than her right to treat you however she wants. And you walk away, not because you're giving up, but because you're finally choosing yourself. The things you should never forgive aren't about being harsh or unloving or incapable of compassion. They're about recognizing when accepting something means accepting your own diminishment. When forgiving means teaching someone that violating you is consequence-free. When staying means sacrificing the one thing you can't afford to lose, your self-respect. And self-respect isn't about pride. It's about understanding that you matter, that your boundaries matter, that how you're treated matters. And when someone repeatedly shows you through their actions that you don't matter to them, believing them isn't giving up on love. It's finally loving yourself enough to require that others do too. And that's not cruelty, that's survival. That's the difference between being loving and being used, between being forgiving and being foolish, between staying for the right reasons and staying because you've forgotten you deserve better. And you do deserve better. You always did. You just needed permission to require it. And this is that permission. These things, these specific violations, they're not tests of your capacity to forgive. They're information about who you're dealing with. And when someone shows you through deliberate cruelty, systematic disrespect, betrayal, contempt, and refusing to own their choices, that they're not capable of treating you with basic dignity, you believe them. You honor yourself enough to walk away. And you stop calling it forgiveness when what you're really doing is choosing to stay somewhere you're not valued. Because that's not virtue. That's just fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of starting over. Fear of admitting you chose wrong. But fear is a worse foundation than solitude, and you'll only realize that when you finally stop forgiving things that should have ended it, when you finally hold the boundary, when you finally choose yourself, and discover that you were worth choosing all along.